Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. On today's video I'm going to talk about timing, and I'm going to finish the video with a bonus tip on active listening to the audience, because they are always telling us something regardless if they're laughing or not. But we're going to cover a few basic to advanced techniques that I think are going to benefit you if you're a comedian starting out and if you've been on the road for some time. So let's get into the good stuff straight away. Okay, incorporating well-timed pauses into your set is going to benefit you greatly. Now, this is true no matter how much experience you have. You've heard it before. We could all do with slowing down our pattern. We could all do with performing that little bit slower. It's true no matter what level you're at in your comedy career. Your pace could be a little slower, all right? Our jokes are going to hit harder if we perform just slightly slower all the time. Now, what I mean by putting in pauses and well-timed pauses is we need to really start to look at our set and try and figure out what moment needs more time to breathe. Perhaps we're not giving the audience enough time to laugh at our material when we've delivered that big punchline, that big moment. And how we teach an audience that there's going to be enough time. It isn't good enough to rush to a punchline and then have a long pause to allow the audience to hopefully fill that long pause with laughter. We need to train the audience into thinking that there's going to be a long pause. And how we do that is we put smaller pauses scattered throughout the set before we get to that big moment. Now, the only time you don't do this is if the entire bit works because it's a fast-paced bit, right? So maybe you're doing a tongue twister, or maybe you're purposely saying something to lose the audience, and maybe the joke is going to be the fact that they don't understand. That's a very rare, specific time when what I'm saying might not be relevant to you, but 99% of you aren't going to be writing that exact bit, and so we need to be putting in little pauses in the set. Okay, I hope you're enjoying the video. I'm going to interrupt it briefly. I offer positive critique videos on this channel for viewers just like yourself. If you are performing live comedy, you need this service. It is going to make you a better comedian, I guarantee it. All you need to do is go into the description box, email me all the information that you have, and I will email you back all the information I have. And if you send me in a link of 5 to 10 minutes, I will send you back a video of 30 to 40 minutes long, pointing out all the great things you're doing, all the ideas you can have, and what direction you could go in, multiple directions for every performer, because I know what I'm talking about, and you're already doing something great that possibly you don't even know you're doing. It's also a way for you to support the channel. That's all I'm going to say about it for now, because I want you to enjoy the rest of this video. Cheers. Obviously, you're kind of thinking, well, why would I put in a pause if I tell something, a little bit of information about myself, and I'm in the intro bit? Well, how do I put pauses in? Well, it's very simple. You could walk on stage, and you could say something about yourself, and it could be your name. And then you could say what you do for a living. Now see, I'm just putting random pauses in now and then, and it's creating a bit of a flow. But I even sped up my speech more than I should have done, just to highlight the point that just because you might speak fast, it doesn't mean that you can't put a pause in and have it sound quite natural. If you put a pause in and you're finding it hard, okay, let me backtrack. If you're finding it hard to slow down the pacing of how you speak on stage, perhaps you're nervous and you're trying to get through the set a little quicker, by putting in artificial pauses, just placing them in, sitting there in the moment for a brief second in comparison to your speech, and then continuing on, you're naturally going to slow down. And even if the audience don't notice it, they will notice the pauses. And a performer who can relax in a moment, a very brief moment of silence in between what they're saying, is a confident performer. And a confident performer is a funny performer, right? That's important, because let's say you have two performers with the exact same material, and one gets up and delivers the material with no pauses and is quite nervous. Well, even if they're not nervous, to have no pauses in a speech and get to that punchline as quick as possible is going to be perceived as nerves to an audience. And it's not going to get the same reaction as another performer with a different night, let's say in front of the same audience in some weird kind of a world. Well, if they just put in artificial pauses and then get to the same punchline, it's going to get a better reaction. Is it going to blow the roof off the place? Maybe not. Maybe the punchline sucks. But it's going to get a better reaction. The person's going to be treated like a comedian a little bit more just because they perceived to be more confident and calm on that stage. And all they did was place pauses in between sentences. So far we have try and slow down your pacing a little bit, but most importantly, add little pauses here and there just to be in the room with the audience, because they do not want to see a person who has just rehearsed their set. They want to see a person who seems to be coming up with things to say, even though they're not, because it's a rehearsed set, right? If you rehearse your set correctly and you add pauses, you seem to be coming up with things to say off the top of your head because you have pauses in your set. Add that. Let's move on to the second part. I don't want to overrun this video like I do with most of them. Adjusting the delivery pace, very important. It's how we get more out of our already working punchlines. So we have humorous parts in our set, we have big moments in our set, we have punchlines in our set, right? However we perceive them, because they're all going to get better the more we write, the more we perform. So we don't even need to change any of the words, the language. We can get more out of those already existing moments by body language and pacing, right? So what we're going to do when we are getting up to a punchline, we are going to make sure everybody is on board with the information. And how we do that, and I see so many people fail at the last hurdle. The little piece of information you say right before you get to the punchline, we don't want to speed that up. We don't want to get there thinking, oh, I love this punchline. The audience are going to love this. They haven't heard it before. They're just learning all these pieces of information about you now, right in a moment. So if that punchline is good and it normally gets a laugh, just have them wait half a second longer or a second longer. Because if something works, you should make them wait for it just a little bit. Now, I know comedians and people who teach comedy are all saying get to the gags as soon as possible. And I say that on this channel all the time. I'm saying put as many gags in the show as you possibly can and get to them as often as possible. But that doesn't mean rushing your speech right before the punchline and destroying the most important sentence that a punchline has to rely on, which is the one it directly follows. Whatever bit you say to set up this line earlier on is not as important as the line you say directly before the punchline that gets the laugh. Because if you want to be really strict with your set, I would argue that the most important line should come right before the punchline, and you should be able to get the same laugh out of just delivering that line and the punchline. Because the information they should already know about you. And if a piece requires too much information without any laughs, well then maybe the punchline isn't worth it. Keep them laughing consistently, and that's the key. Let's move on to the final point. Engaging in active listening. I did promise you I would give you this. So what we're going to do here is, while we are doing the set, while we're performing. Now this might seem obvious to you, but I guarantee you, if you're doing many gigs, you're forgetting to do this. And that is to listen to the silence in the room. Active listening in a comedy set is so important. Because if you start to actually listen to the audience and taking a moment, you are going to do the first two techniques I gave you in this video by accident. If you decide to be in that room with the audience and not just, well, it was my 5th gig this week, or, oh, I've rehearsed this set 150 times in the last 3 days. I know it off by heart. I'm going to smash this gig because I don't even need to think about anything. I know this set so well. Well, you got a recipe for disaster, because an audience, as we've already discussed, couldn't give a shit about how well rehearsed you are. They want to be entertained by a person who is in that room, who feels like they're in that room, who feels like they want to reach out and entertain the very audience they're in front of. Not just get through the set and who cares who's in the room, who enjoys it or not. That's not the kind of ego we want to have here. It's not. We want to create a really good time for anybody who's in front of us and pass the ball on in a successful way to the next comedian coming on. We're trying to make it better for everybody. So we need to decide before we get on that stage that once we go up there, not only are we going to deliver the material that we've well rehearsed, but we are going to do so in a way that is in the room. We are going to make sure we have eye contact with every member of the audience. And if that's too much for you at the early stage of your career, the technique is to look just around them. I usually go for just over eye level, maybe over the top of their head. It will give the illusion to them that you're looking directly into the eyes. If you glance quickly enough at them, they will think, oh, he spent a little bit of time getting to look at everyone in the face while not really remembering that you didn't actually look directly in their eyes. It's just a little tip if you're finding it hard to look directly in their eyes. But I would say, try and force yourself to look at someone directly in the eyes for just 2 seconds while you're talking. Just direct the entire set to them. And then go back to directing the entire set to the audience. And play with that kind of a relationship. And what you're going to find is your pacing is going to naturally get better. Your moments of silence in between talking is going to naturally get better because someone is going to do a facial expression. Someone is going to move in their seat. Something is always happening in that room that you can have a brief moment to notice. And you don't need to say it, you just need to notice it. And if your body language and your facial expressions notice it, and perhaps you stop, or perhaps you say something a little quicker and then go back to your original pacing because of it. If you move with the room, if you move with the subtle tells that the audience have, then the comedy becomes conversational with that specific audience. And that is always what we need. And the audience, regardless of how strong the set is, if it's your first gig, granted you're not going to be able to do this extremely well, but at least the audience will respect you for trying and being in the moment with them, because so many other comedians have gone on before them on that very night and just got through the set as quick as possible thinking that alone is going to cover it. And as we all know now, it's not. So be the comedian that's in the room for the audience and you cannot go wrong. Okay. That is my rant over for today, and I will see you on the next video.